YouTube? I'm back again today for another game preview and a special Kickstarter preview. And today I'm very excited to check out Champions of Hara from Greenbrier Games. This is for 1 to 4 players. It'll take about 45 minutes to 3 hours to play, and it's for ages, 14 plus. And Champions of Hara actually has a really interesting backstory. I did a Kickstarter video for this 3 years ago. I remember interviewing them a long time ago. They ran a Kickstarter. Apparently something went awry. I'm not quite sure what happened there, but now Greenbrier Games has picked this up. They have retooled the game, redone the game, and now they are bringing the game back to Kickstarter with quite a few deal of changes to it. But in this game, you're going to be taking control of a champion. You're going to be going to Hara. You're going to be trying to get resources. It's an asymmetrical dual-use card game with lots of cool little ideas in there. Let's open it up and I'll show you how it works. Alright then, we're going to take a look at what you're going to get inside of Champions of Hara. Before we get started, I do want to mention this is the promotional copy I have in front of me, so take everything you see here with a grain of salt. Also, I want to mention that there's a lot of stuff going on in this game. There's different characters, there's different dual-use cards, there's 2 different game modes, there's lots of stuff going on in this game. I'm going to do my best to give you a feel for how everything works, but I might miss a thing here or there, so just be forewarned. So first and foremost, we got our handy-dandy rule booklet. It is 24 pages, double-sided, full color, full of pictures, illustrations, examples, and it's pretty well done. There's a lot of stuff in this rule booklet, but I feel like it covers everything pretty concisely. As you can see, mine's been pretty heavily used learning all the rules, but it is a pretty decently done rule booklet that should have you up and running. Now, with that being said, in Champions of Hara, what you're going to be doing is you're going to be playing one of 2 game modes. The first one is going to be where you're going to take control of a champion, which are going to be these guys right here, which will actually be little miniatures, and you are going to have your own asymmetrical abilities, and you're going to be trying to be the first person to get to 10 on all the different resource tracks over here on your little player board right here. So that's going to be the one versus everybody sort of thing, where one person versus, it's a free-for-all. Now, you also can play where it's going to be a cooperative game, where you'll be playing against bad guys. And these guys are guys that were Champions of Hara, but they've slowly grown more and more and more powerful, and now you have to stop them. And those are actually kind of like story arcs that you'll be playing. So there's different scenarios, and each of those bad guys does play differently, which is going to lend itself to a lot of replayability and a lot of expansions in the future, potentially. But there's lots of stuff going on in the game, so let's go ahead and take a look at the components, then we'll get into the gameplay. So right out here, we have Hara, and these are actually very large. I believe these are hexagons, and they're going to have different locations on them with the different colors. You'll also notice that each one is going to have its own unique deck of cards, and in these deck of cards, you're going to have a couple different things. You're going to have a lot of monsters, and monsters are how you are going to gain the energy over here, and this energy, as I mentioned, is how you're going to potentially win the game, and also how you can help level up your character by adding more cards, because this has a little bit of a deck building aspect, where as you progress through the game and as you get more powerful, you are going to add more cards to your deck, which will make your character even more asymmetrical. Like I said, lots of stuff going on in this game. So you're going to have characters. You're also going to have these guys right here, which will be events that will happen, and events will just happen. You'll have to deal with them. Some of them will be hidden. Some of them will be open world. You're also going to have riffs, and riffs are another good way that you will potentially be able, let me see if I can find a riff, potentially be able to gain yourself some of that valuable elements that you need. So for instance, this one, just for going here, even for attempting to close the rift or open the rift or do something, whatever you're doing for the rift, you are going to gain 1 red. But if you're able to successfully beat it by rolling a die, you're going to gain 2 additional red. And you can also spend some of your spirit, which I'll talk a little bit more about later. So you're going to be flipping over these cards, and these cards are going to be coming up during what is happening during the day. So you're going to play over the course of 6 days in this game. You're going to be keeping track of it right here. You'll have dawn and you will have dusk, which are 2 very different phases. Well, they're the same phase primarily for what you're going to be doing, but the dawn phase is going to be a little bit more predictable, and the dusk phase is going to be a little bit more unpredictable. But we'll talk more about that when we get more into the gameplay. So, continuing on, you're going to have items over here, and items are awesome. You're going to be able to get items, and all these are going to be numbered on there. You're going to get these items by defeating bad guys, by doing various different events, and they're all numbered, so you'll be able to go and find those, and those will be cards that you will have, so it'll make your character even more asymmetrical. Now, I've been talking about these asymmetrical characters, so let's take a look at some of the characters going on over here. So you're going to get your own unique deck. I've got Karu and Kuma, so everybody's going to start with their own health, with their own spirit. You're also going to have keywords right here, which is nice, a little bit of a backstory. But the big thing is you're going to have your cards. And the cards in this game are really stinking cool because as you can see, there are 2 parts to the cards. That's because these are dual use cards. The top part is going to be what you do when you play this card out of your hand. And once you play it to your hand, it's going to go to the table because this is the kind of game where when you play something, you have to wait a while before you'll be able to put it back in your hand and use it. However, unlike a lot of other games that use that mechanism, on the bottom of the card, there's another special ability, and that special ability will happen when the cards are on the board, which just means they're down here. So very, very cool. You have to be thinking not only about the action you're going to take now, but also the action that will happen when you get to this point right here, and then eventually when you get all the way around the circle, you'll be able to put the card back in your hand. These are the turn order cards since we're going over components, and if you're the first person to go, it is a little bit better. It's actually a lot better, but if you're going second, third, or fourth, you'll be able to gain various different special abilities, and these will be passing around the table as well. It's not fixed just for one person. Let's take a look at our player board over here. So the player board is going to keep track of your health. It's also going to keep track of your spirit. And then right here is where you're going to be keeping track of your red, blue, and green resources. Because I talked about that's how you're going to win the game in the skirmish game mode. And also it's going to help you out a lot when you're placing those big champions of Hara, the big bad guys as well. But what you also notice is right here, the middle part are going to allow you to add cards because you're going to start out with a fairly thin deck, but what you'll be able to do is when you reach that threshold of that part of your board, you'll be able to add another card to your hand, which means that your character is going to get even more asymmetrical because I believe everybody starts with one of the same card. And then everything else is just completely different. So each of the characters is going to play a little bit different. Like you'll have one guy who's focused all on getting mad, so the more they get hurt, the better they get. You know, you got Grit right here. I personally like him an awful lot. And each one is going to play different, which is really stinking cool. So that's pretty much what we got on the components, but let's go through you a mock turn. What actually are you going to be doing in the game? And while there are a lot of complex and difficult mechanisms, or at least what sound like that, with the asymmetrical characters and the dual use cards, you got to be keeping track of your spirit and your grit and your health and all that various different stuff, it's actually a pretty straightforward game. So what you're going to do is you're going to start out here on the dojo. So let's just pretend that this is like a martial arts movie. This is your safe house. This is your home. And everything out here is where the bad stuff is going to happen. However, you have to go out there to close rifts, to fight monsters, to have events, to do all sorts of various different things. So the first thing you're going to do is you're going to pass your turn order cards at the very beginning of the round. Obviously, the very first round, you're not going to do that. Next, you're going to spawn cards from the world deck. What this means is you are going to be spawning these cards onto the board, and you will be spawning those on the day you are on. So for instance, if you're on day number 2, Dawn 2, then you'll be spawning on the 2. If you're on 4, you'll be on 4, so on and so forth. So that's going to tell you where you want to go, because maybe you want to get red, maybe you want to get green, maybe you want to go to an event, maybe you want to go fight a monster. That's up to you where you decide to do. And now each player is going to take their turn, which is going to allow you to take 3 actions. So on your turn, you're going to be able to take those actions by playing cards. So you'll be able to use the cards either that are currently down on the board, because as we mentioned, they'll be using the bottom part right here, or you'll be able to use cards that are in your hand, and once you put them in your hand, you will then put them on the board. But you're going to take 3 actions. This is where you're going to be moving your character around, doing events, fighting monsters, doing all sorts of various different stuff, gaining some items, and I really do like the items in the game, because there's like some that will be persistent special abilities, some that'll be the kind where you can use them a couple times, sometimes it'll be one-time uses, lots of different items and variabilities in the game. So everyone is going to take their turn. So you'll do 3 actions, the next guy will do 3 actions, the next person will do 3 actions, and then if you're playing the scenario, which is when you're going to be facing one of those big bad dudes over here, then they will take their turn, and they'll go around, they'll kill you, they'll do all sorts of various different bad things depending on which character you're playing against. Then you will move, boom, to the dusk phase. And as I mentioned a little bit earlier, the dusk phase is a little bit more unpredictable because you're actually going to be spawning cards from this deck right here, the Conflux deck. And how you do that is you are going to be rolling this dice and then spawning them. So you are not sure where things are going to be popping up, which means bad stuff can happen near you because the monsters, if you don't kill the monsters, and how the monsters work, I'm not going to go too much into monster combat, is you have to kill them in one felt swoop. Like, you have to completely kill them or you don't do any damage to them at all. They kind of heal. And if you don't kill them and they're within range of you, then they will start attacking you, and that's their attack right there. So they will start dealing damage to you, but that will happen during the dust phase. So you're going to spawn cards from that deck. Then each player, you're going to take your turns once again, like you did before in the day phase. And then you're going to have yet another corrupted turn. And that's what you're pretty much going to do. You're going to rinse, wash, and repeat and do that over and over again. While there is a lot of stuff going on in the game, it's actually a relatively simple game of just trying set collection, kind of trying to get all your green, all your red, all your blue, at least in the skirmish version of the game. Now, obviously, if you're playing some of the scenarios or the story arcs, it's, wildly different from game to game, but that, in a crazy nutshell, is what you're going to be doing inside of Champions of Hara. Alrighty then, Champions of Hara from Greenbrier Games coming to a Kickstarter near you very, very soon. I'll be sure to post that Kickstarter link down below. Who might be digging this game? First and foremost, if you are looking for a game with polish that's been play tested, this is definitely one you might want to check out. I remember interviewing them, I think 3 or 4 years ago about this game, and they had been developing this game for quite a few years. So this game has been in development for a long time, being real tuned, being finely tuned. So if you're looking for a game with a lot of polish, this one definitely probably will fit that bill. Also, if you were looking for a game with a lot of variability, this one definitely will fit that bill. It's going to have asymmetrical characters up the wazoo. I believe this Kickstarter is actually going to have an expansion in it where you can go up to 6 players, but more importantly, I think that's going to add new bad guys, new scenarios, new story arcs, and also new characters that you'll be able to play. And this is the kind of game where each one plays a little bit differently, so you might, if you enjoy the game, want to try out each and every different character, which means a lot of gameplay there. Last but not least, if you're looking for a game that is dripping with lore and theme, this one definitely has this. It's going to have a graphic novel that comes with it. They've really worked a lot, very comprehensively about this backstory, and they want to expand this backstory even more. So if you're looking for that type of game where you can kind of immerse yourself into the story and into the surroundings and the artwork of the game, this one definitely might be for you as well. But that is Champions of Hara from Greenbrier Games. If it looks like it might be your cup of tea, be sure to check out that Kickstarter link down below. If you're enjoying what I'm doing, please be sure to click on that subscribe button down below in the comments below. Let me know. If you could be the champion of anything in the world, you could be the best, the absolute #1 best at anything in the world, what would it be? For me personally, it would be poker. Probably poker. I mean, I would love to do that. Just go to the World Series of Poker, win it once, make all that money, retire, come back, maybe 5-10 years later, win it again. So you could be like 2-time World Series of Poker champion. And then you could just live your life the rest, however you wanted to. So that's what I'd want to be the champion of. What would you want to be the champion of? Let me know in the comments below. And as always, thanks for your time, YouTube.